Hi, I'm Joe from School of Rock North Buffalo. When we're not making musicians, we're also fixing gear. So if you have a guitar or bass in need of love, if you need new strings, please bring it in. We'll be more than happy to help you. So not only do we do instruction and performance-based music, we also fix gear. So please bring it down to 9310 Trents Road, East Amherst, or you can give me a call at 716-317-7625. Again, School of Rock North Buffalo. We make musicians and we fix your gear.
On this episode of Talking About Rock, Rik Emmett.
Hello, welcome to this episode of Talking About Rock. I'm Rob Edwards. Here we bring you rock interviews from veteran and upcoming artists. Subscribe on our YouTube channel to stay up to date and follow us on our social media and our website, talkingaboutrock.com. Okay, today's guest created and performed some of the greatest rock songs and power ballads, and we are happy to have him back with us. Here to talk with us about his journey creating the book and music for 10 Telecaster Tales with his guitar babs, let's welcome back Rik Emmett.
Hello. Hey, Rob.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm okay. It's getting close to dinner time here, so
we won't keep you too long then. So I just finished up reading your book here, 10 Telecaster Tales. You know, and thank you for having the publicist send me a copy. Appreciate it. So this must be like the most detailed insight into your process that you've ever done, right? It's like liner notes taken to the next level is what it is.
Yeah, I've taken right to the ultimate level. Yeah, self-indulgent certainly, but also one of the things that I think when you get to the age of 71, you sort of kind of go, well, I don't care what people think. This is kind of what I want to do. And this is going to be fun for me. I mean, design a guitar, write a bunch of things, record an album, write a book about recording the album. And yeah, it ends up being sort of the most comprehensive liner notes ever for a solo guitar instrumental record. But man, all of it felt like it was a very organic, artistic, creative process that I enjoyed. So I went, well, I don't care if people think it's selfish.
I think it's a great idea. You know, creating the guitar. You talk about that a lot in the book. You know, putting together the music, and like I said, this is like liner notes. You know, taken to the next level. Back in the day, you would just get a little bit of blurbs inside the album, a couple notes, and a couple thank yous to everybody and stuff like that. But I mean, you get in depth here. You know, you're discussing the bonding between head, heart, and hand. Which I thought was really cool, being so essential for the creativity process.
Yeah, obviously, I wrote columns for Guitar Player magazine for 13 years, and then I taught college. So just the whole idea of creative process, I was going to go into depth about that on all levels, and I mean draw on these things, but there were other things too, like. The woman that has done graphics for me, album covers and stuff, Janine Leach, she did, like, I think in the end, 25 illustrations for the book and the cover and everything. And
that's really cool, the stuff she's did in here. Yeah.
It was really fun to be collaborating with her, where she would send me, things that she was doing in her computer. And I'd go, well, how about this? How about that? Let me suggest this and see what, come back to me in a couple of days with some changes. So it was fun. It was like getting to play creative ping pong, on a digital level. And of course, I had my friend Blair Packham come in to engineer the recordings in the first place. And I really like Blair. He's a good friend. We've done songwriting workshop stuff together over the years. And so that was really comfortable and kind of fun. And having him in this room where I recorded it kind of raised my game. It reminded me of the old days at Metalworks where the engineers that we had that were staff guys there, I kind of liked doing sessions with them because it would draw more out of me. I would be trying to impress them a little bit, you know. So that was a great thing too. So just the whole process was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, and this is really neat because we get to see some of your notes. Like for each song, you're basically going through the process and your notation and your tab here from everything that you're doing. So that's the kind of thing you usually don't see from an artist. Like maybe years later, you'll see, oh, here's the lyrics to such and such, or here's the, the actual notes when we created the song. You don't usually see that in this process, which I thought was really neat to add that in here.
Well, I'm glad you like that because I'll tell you, I felt like I was kind of putting pictures from high school with pimples, like I felt like I was, showing naked pictures of myself. And I said to my editor, I know that probably you'll think this is kind of cool, but I want you to be honest with me. Like, I feel a little bit shy about revealing the fact that my charts they're not really charts, and you called it tab, and that's very generous of you because I did an interview with somebody else and he said, Rik, they look like hieroglyphics to me. And I said, they kind of are. They're just kind of Rik Emmett. It's my hieroglyphics so that I can remember what I'm doing,
right,
and have a reference, but it's not notation. It's not tablature. It's just a combination of the shapes of notes and I write the actual letters of notes instead of writing notes on staff paper. So,
right.
I'm a little gun shy about making it public, but my editor Michael Holmes said, no, man, this is great. This is like getting to see, the Wizard of Oz behind the screen.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like you usually don't see this type of stuff when a project comes out. You might see it years later, some of the notation or some of the lyrics or some of the stuff they scratched on paper to do. But guitarists and artists are really gonna dig that and like that. So let's get into the music here a little bit as well. So I've been checking that out for the last week or so. So the CD opens with So Pushy. So very, very cool track. And I just wanted to start by saying this is kind of alludes back to a little bit what you did in the Triumph days. You'd always put a cool little guitar piece, maybe one or two on all the different Triumph albums. And I'll tell you, my guitar friends were always trying to figure that out until the tab came out for your little lick on there.
Yeah. Well, So Pushy was, all 10 songs are like, things that would have gone as B cuts or C cuts on other albums. In this case, though, So Pushy is kind of a bluesy. It was a 12-bar thing. When I wrote my poetry book, Reinvention, I had when I did the audiobook, I put little guitar things to get from one thing to another. And there was this one little 12-bar jazzy thing that I'd written. And I went, yeah, if I write a B section for that, and if I come up with some kind of a riff, and I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to convert it into something until I came up with the opening riff. And that was like the last thing, because I was saying it needs something with more energy. It needs something like, I don't know, Jimmy Page would play or Ted Nugent would play. It just needs a riff,
Right.
And then I came up with it was like almost like a bluesy riff, and I went, okay, I'm on Easy Street now. I know that I've got something, and of course it's called So Pushy because I do tend to. I like anticipating the beat. I like syncopation. I like going across bar lines. I tend to be a guy that's in a hurry, So I was talking, and musicians in rehearsal, they call them pushes. Hey, I want to do, let's, instead of a downbeat here, let's do a push. And I do tend to do a lot of them. So
Right.
that's me.
Yeah, and each track on here definitely, stands out on its own. They all have a different feel to them, a different style to them. So it kind of just shows us your diversity with each track here. And then you have next is the swirling, which is really neat too. Like I said, every track has its own its own body of work, its own feel to it.
Yeah, the second track is actually Funky Scratching. And in a way, I think of it as being the most accessible to, like, when I first wrote them, I thought maybe that should have been the first track because it's the easiest one to get into. And it's like funky stuff, ninth chords, R&B styling kind of playing. Back from when I was a kid, there was in the Toronto scene, first there was, before there were Guitar Heroes, Toronto had its own because we had Robbie Robertson played with Ronnie Hawkins and the Hawks, and then he went and they, eventually was in the band. But he played with Ronnie, and then there was another guy named Dominic Troiano, who he played in local bands and stuff, but he played with Ronnie Hawkins. He took Robbie Robertson's place because he used to go and watch them play all the time, and he learned all his licks. But Donnie took it to another level. He really was a musician's musician. And anyways, that whole thing of sort of funky R&B, it was as prominent in the Toronto scene as rock was. Like when the Beatles were starting to happen, there were already bluesy R&B bands in Toronto just because of the influences of like Detroit and Chicago and in the Great Lakes. It was a kind of a thing where a lot of these bands would tour around and they'd come to Toronto, and it was a heavy influence. So there were horn bands and stuff, and that was the style. Everybody had Telecasters, and everybody was playing that style. So that's Funky Scratching. And then Swirling, that's the beginning of the. There's like a barn dance suite. There's three things, and two of them are set in triple time, like one's a waltz and one's in sort of in 6/8. And I was. I got a commission where I was writing a bourrée for a movie. And a bourrée was a thing from lute suites and dance suites in like the 17th and 18th century. And so that got me thinking about, well, I should, write some stuff that would be like actual dance things. So, a saraband or a jig or there's a whole bunch of them that are standard kinds of forms. So there's an allemande in there, that was a standard courtly kind of straightforward feel, and that's the most classical piece on the. But I'm playing them all on a telly. They've all got a little bit of snotty attitude to them.
Definitely. And I love the insight and just the writing for the book itself. It's very, very insightful. Like you mentioned, you had a poetry collection that came out in 2021 from ECW Press. You followed that up with a memoir of yours in 2023, Lay It on the Line. But when I'm going through and reading this, it's almost like I'm reading lyrics to some of your songs because you're really thinking about I think the wording of what you're doing in here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and I'm glad you mentioned the poetry book because that was a thing that was really like a can opener for my head artistically. To be writing poetry kind of gave me license to and it led to the way that I wrote the memoir, and by the way, when I made the deal with ECW for 10 Telecaster Tales, part of the contract was I also want a second poetry book because I know they wouldn't give me a separate one because nobody makes any money printing books of poetry, but it was that was the deal I made. You got to give me that. So that's coming out in October this year. It'll be called Leaning Into It.
Nice.
And that was written during COVID. So it's got some darkness and some attitude and stuff in it. But, the older I get, the more I'm sort of damn the torpedoes. I don't care, don't care.
Right. At this point, you're just going to do what you want to do. I mean, you've had a great career. You've done so many great things, written so many great songs and stuff. Any thought of maybe having a little bit of music accompany that at all, or probably not?
I don't think that'll be. But in the back of my mind now, and first of all, I should say this that. I've been doing promo obviously for this thing now, 10 Telecaster Tales, and it's been really nice. It's been very positive and made me feel pretty good. So even though there's a part of me where I go, well, I'm thinking about retiring, and then I go, yeah, well, but maybe I'm never going to retire being creative. So now in my mind, I'm thinking, I've got, about 8 or 9 songs that are lyrics and
Right.
and maybe I can do the same thing, except instead of be guitar pieces, it could be about
Yeah. Or
songs
you
and lyrics.
do like what Alex did with his book, Brothers. He released just one song, like an unfinished song, and put the book out just with one song.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can always do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I'll tell you what I am going to do. I'm doing all these interviews. I'm playing 2 live shows, and I'm going to play the Telecaster Tales. And I'm going to record it live, see what I get. I'm doing that April 10 and 11 in Toronto at the Redwood Theater, and then my wife and I are going to fly to Paris and have some springtime in Paris, and then we're going to get on one of those river cruises, and we're going to go down from Amsterdam all the way down to Switzerland, and we're just going to take our time and have a kind of a real vacation, but also a kind of a reassessment of what are we going to do with our retirement? What are we going to do with our lives now that we're sort of in Act 3 of how this all works? I don't know, and I don't want to be so involved in creative projects that I'm not spending the right amount of time with my family. I mean,
Right.
I had my fifth grandchild here for babysitting yesterday, and that stuff it's pretty important. It's pretty precious.
Oh, definitely, definitely. You guys are on the road so much with Triumph back in the day, so now it's time to enjoy some of that for sure.
Exactly. And it's not like I need the money for anything career wise. It's more a question of what will keep me mentally healthy and happy. So I'm going to figure out that balance. I don't know how much time and energy I'm going to keep putting towards writing books and making recordings and stuff. But, so it may be years between things instead of, months, but we'll see. I don't know.
Right, right. Are you looking at doing maybe any signings at any different places coming up? I know you did some stuff in Canada and stuff. You looking to do anything in the States or anything? Or
There's nothing on the books. And there's nothing on my calendar. I mean, I've got a lot of this promo stuff that I'm doing. And I do end up selling a fair number of my books and things in the States. So, I got to tell you, though, I got to be honest, your president hasn't been a very friendly guy. And
I was going to say, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on here, and we all see that, and a lot of us shake our heads every day for sure.
I know that not all, like, I know that first of all, there were more people that didn't vote than people that voted for him, and then there were almost as many people voted for Kamala Harris. So I know that the majority of Americans are not necessarily sold on what's going on. But I say that because I had already decided a long time ago, I'm not going to be paying my union dues anymore. I'm not going to be looking to try and get visas. It was a fairly complicated process, and you had to be a member of the union. You had to apply through the union in order to get your P2, all that stuff. And I just went, I'm not doing it anymore. So, and now, of course, there's a lot of Canadians. They're not even. They don't even go to the States for fun.
Right. Well, I'm going to have to make the trek up there and definitely see you at some of the places going on. Hopefully, you'll have some signings going on and be able to get my book signed from you. That would be awesome. Couple things real quick here. Also, I don't know if you have any memories of that or anything, but any of the shows in maybe the Western New York or Buffalo area, you remember back in the day playing anything for that from the Never Surrender tour? Or I know you did some stuff locally when you guys did Allied Forces. You did some stuff with Buffalo music and Buffalo radio.
Yeah, I mean we only ever got the key to 3 cities. One was our hometown of Mississauga, and that happened much later when we were doing the Walk of Fame thing. But the first place we got a key to was Buffalo. We got the key to the city to Buffalo. And yeah, I mean, I remember those shows at the old War Memorial, like there used to be like a War Memorial in Buffalo and in Rochester.
In Rochester, yep.
And in Syracuse, I think, too, or an old building that was around from the same era. And so we used to go across the top of New York State, on every tour. And but I'll tell you a funny story about New York State. I once played after I'd left Triumph and I was out on my own. I played an Earth Day on, in like oh man, like on the East Coast. So it might have been Delaware, it might have been Connecticut, I'm not sure, but it was someplace on the East Coast. And it was like April, I think. And we played and it was rainy on the East Coast. And then as we were driving back in my van, at like 2:30 in the morning, it started snowing as we were coming across the top of, like it was lake effect snow.
That sounds about right for the area. Yep.
It was unbelievable. By the time we were getting past like, Syracuse and on our way to Rochester, there was like 2 feet of snow on the ground and we had to get in behind a truck and just, follow the ruts of the tractor trailer going, oh God, please, we don't want to die. We don't want to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I think of that, upstate New York all the time. That drive was like, a little bit frightening, but yeah, I mean, I could tell a million stories.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, the weather, yeah, we always say about the weather, if you don't like it, wait 10 minutes because it'll change. Like you said, that's kind of what happens.
It's
You know
true.
what I mean? So great speaking with you. Do you speak with the guys at all anymore in Triumph and all? You speak with Mike and Gil, check in with them?
Yeah, all the time with Gil because he's got a bee in his bonnet about wanting to do this heavy duty 3D hologramish. Like he wants Triumph to go back and do a tour, not the guys in the band, but like screen projection.
Yeah, that's the next wave of stuff. That's what a lot of people are looking at.
And he wants to have a band that would have Phil X sort of putting the musicians together so that there would be a live band, but then we would be joining them by playing on the screens and and just all this incredible stuff. And he's sending me scripts, and so he was supposed to call me this afternoon and he got too busy. But yes, I talk to Gil all the time. Mike, not so much. And he's been down in Jamaica as he does every winter.
He's got the right idea.
Yeah, So, but yeah, I think there's some stuff in the offing there for sure. And I'm going to mention this just because I know you're American and it doesn't matter much to you, but there's a thing called the Coalition of Music Educators in Canada, and they chose the song "Hold On" as their Music Mondays feature thing that they're going to do for the next 2 years. And so I went into the Metalworks and I re-recorded a version of the song, strumming on a guitar, tuned the guitar down, didn't sing the really high lines. We'll get somebody else to do that. But they're going to put choirs on it and like kids choirs. And I got the famous Canadian producer guy, Greg Wells, who's done like Adele albums and Katy Perry albums. And like this guy's just been, one of the most successful producer writers ever. And he's played keyboards on it. And so there's going to be guest artists. So it's going to be this really cool thing. And I mean, somebody sent me a link and it was like a children's choir, grade 2 to grade 5. And these kids all singing my song in Chatham, Ontario one afternoon, and I like that kind of thing is just so cool. It's so great to have
to feel amazing to hear that. Yeah.
It's like a gift that I'm getting later in life that I go like, I don't know what I ever did to deserve this, but this is really a sweet thing.
You wrote some great songs. People remember those. People still love those. You know what I mean? They still play them all the time on the radio and on the streaming services, everything. Definitely. So folks out there, if you got questions or need more info, you can check out rikemmett.com. The book, 10 Telecaster Tales, you can check that out there. Can you also pick up the book and the CD deluxe set on visionmerch.com. All right. So that wraps up this episode of Talking About Rock. Thank you to my guest today, the one and only Rik Emmett. Thanks to our sponsors, Unleashed Music and School of Rock North Buffalo. And to all our listeners and our fans, thank you for helping us keep the torch alive, and we hope you support live music wherever you are. Rik, again, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob. It was my pleasure.